Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. We will be starting in just a couple of minutes. So give me a couple minutes to get a couple things squared away, and I will be right with you. What's currently offline? Where's my chat app? There we go. Where's my, come on, Zoom, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. This is where we read and study the Constitution. We teach the rising generation to be free. I am glad you could join me this evening. Seems like a common theme. I don't have a lot of good news tonight, but hopefully there'll be some good news later. I've already got a message here from Wyoming. I guess they're having a Constitution study party to watch the live stream. Wow, I'm thrilled. I love to hear when people are reading and studying. The fact that they would spend the time listening to me, I just, it blows me away. I thank you very much. I'm hoping a couple other people are joining. I found out, I was talking to someone earlier this week. They did a Constitution class, not about a couple hours from me in Tennessee. They were sold out. They were so busy. They had so many people come up for their next class. They're running two at the same time, which shows me that people are interested in the Constitution. They are interested in learning, that they look at what's going on around them and they want to know what they can do. And I'm glad that people join in, and I hope that Um, you'll do more than just watch. I hope you'll get engaged, and maybe I've got some stuff that will help you. I'll talk about a little later in the show. Who knows? We'll see. As always, if you have questions, please type them in the comments. I will get them, and we will. I'll answer whatever I can. I'll do my best. There certainly is a lot going on, and last time, a couple weeks ago, we had a lot of good questions. So hopefully we'll have them today. I really like it when this is an interactive session. So with that, let me talk about the title, and that is A View of the Future of America. Now, those of you who watched me for a while know I'm not real big on predictions. It seems to me most of the people that make predictions are wrong, or the predictions are so vague you have no idea. Usually what I do is I look back and go, well, gee, am I surprised or not? And I have to tell you, what's been going on in the last few weeks doesn't really surprise me all that much. But what really got me going, what has really brought me concern, is what I've seen since January 6th, since the invasion of the Capitol by a relatively few number of people, and what people have used that as an excuse for. Really, it makes me worried, because I look and I'm really trying to decide right now, are we living in Orwell's 1984 or Huxley's Brave New World? Because I see both. And I started collecting headlines and news articles, and I wanted to put some of these together because I think they tell us a lot about what we can expect in the near future. And the first we'll talk about is the general silencing of opposition. The idea that if I don't like what you're saying, well, I'm going to you're not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to have a dissenting opinion in certain quarters anymore. Now, that's gone from everything from the social media bans. I mean, most everybody here probably knows, back in November, I was blocked from posting on Facebook. That's why these live streams aren't on Facebook anymore. That in December, that became a permanent ban. And in fact, I can't even create a new account on Facebook. Every time I try to create an account, they disable it before they even turn it on, before they even validate the address. So that's been a bit frustrating, but it's more than that. I mean, it's one thing. I'm just Paul, right? They banned the president of the United States, not simply Donald J. Trump. They banned the official account of the office of President of the United States. Now, again, social media companies are not government entities. They have the right to control what's on their platform. But what does it say about the American people that those who are involved with those companies think it is that the appropriate reaction to disagreement is to block, to ban, to shut down? First it was, and again, this didn't start suddenly. This has been building for a while. There have been years, a couple of years now, people have been talking about shadow bans and deplatforming and demonetizing and all these things, trying to shut down dissent from a certain point of view. Now, again, I'm old enough to remember that there was a saying, I may despise what you have to say, but I will fight to the death your right to say it. Well, not only do these organizations not believe that, but it appears a large percentage of the American people are more than happy to go along with it. I don't know that they actually believe that shutting up dissent is wrong, that freedom of speech is bad, but they're certainly willing to go along with people who do. And that bothers me. That brings me concern. Have the American people become so weak that have we become so cowardly? Are we truly no longer the home of the brave? Because if we're not the home of the brave, we cannot be the land of the free. The pledge, the land of the free and the home of the brave is something we aspire to. Well, more and more our freedom is being taken away, and not simply by government. And the American people are sitting down and doing what they're told. We have Parler is an excellent example. Parler was a social media platform. Well, I guess it technically still is, except it's been down for what, 2 weeks now. They were a social media platform, and their terms of service basically said, as long as what you're doing is not illegal, we won't bother you. What a concept is that? As long as what you're saying isn't illegal, you're fine. There was I think that a few extra caveats, but you see, the word was getting out. People who could no longer speak on Facebook and Twitter and were looking for a place to have an outlet, and they found Parler, and Parler was growing, and Amazon shut them down. Now, again, Amazon's a privately owned company. It's not a government entity. They have the right to do things. But if my information is correct, Amazon violated their contract with Parler. And yet when Parler looked to the government for a redress of their grievance, the first court that saw it said, nah, you don't stand much of a chance. So much for your right to petition. So much for a redress of your grievances. When if you have a contract that says, and I haven't seen the contract, but what I'm told is that Parler's contract said that either party could cancel with 30 days notice. They had less than 30 hours notice. So much for a redress of that grievance. Now we have members of Congress blacklisting members of the previous administration, saying they should be banned from serving in government. They should be banned from participating in government. And in some media circles, they should be banned from public view. What really scares me about all of this is I've seen this before. This is not new in history. For those of you who haven't looked it up, look up the Cultural Revolution under Mao Zedong. And you know what you'll find? You'll find government and party actors that pointed at people that disagreed and said, you're not allowed to speak. Where people were marched through the streets with dunce caps because they disagreed with the party. Where people were tried on trumped up charges because they disagreed with the party. Look at Stalin's Russia. Look at the Soviet Union, where if you disagreed with the approved message, you were tried, convicted, and sent to a camp. Soviet Union, they had a newspaper called Pravda, which is Russian for truth, but it was nothing but propaganda. And I see our media being little more than propaganda. I see the news media, I see social media hiding information from the American people that those in positions of influence don't want them to be seen. Media Research Council commissioned a study. They found that it was something like 14% of Biden voters had not seen or it was 30% of Biden voters had not seen a story on the fact that his son Hunter was being investigated for ties and criminal actions and peddling his father's influence, his father's name. And I think 14% of them said if they had known that before the election, they wouldn't have voted for Biden. That was a total of something like 6% of his entire vote. If those people simply had not voted for Biden, we would have a different man in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue this evening. But you see, wrongthink is set aside. If you're in the Washington Post and you've got a important news article, we're going to ban you from certain media because we don't want that to be heard. And the American people keep returning to these places, to places that are obviously lying to them, like dogs returning to vomit. We see people that are using the opportunity. There's nothing new about people controlling the levers of power and using them to manipulate the system. But we have a man in office who is ruling by diktat. Now, some of his executive orders are probably within the purview of the executive branch, but are we no longer a republic? Is this no longer a government of the people, by the people, and for the people? Is it merely whoever gets in office creates their own rules? We have evidence of fraud and, if nothing else, legal violations in the recent elections, and we're not allowed to, there are people saying you're not allowed to talk about that. This reminds me of the Soviet Union, of China during when I was a kid in the 70s, and I lived in New York City, and I saw people who had recently immigrated amazed at the freedoms. They're disappearing, and the American people, a lot of them seem to be sitting by and simply watching. They're watching people destroy the republic, to destroy the electoral college, to pack the courts, because they can't get things done the way they wanted. They're going to change the rules. And now that they're in power, they're going to use that power. They're going to consolidate. They are in the process of consolidating more and more power in government. How do I know that? Why is it the only place you can get a COVID vaccine is if it was purchased by the federal government and then sent to the states? And if you don't follow the state's rule, you don't get the shot. Now, whether you want a COVID shot or not, that's a different question. Why is it only the government that has control over the vaccine? Why is it the government that got to approve whether or not you should be allowed to take the vaccine? Why is it government approval of medicine? Because power is being consolidated, not just in government, but in the federal government. Exactly the opposite of what our founding fathers created, a decentralized system where the federal government was subservient to the states. We now have states licking the boots of the federal government. We have executive orders violating the constitutions and the rights of the American people, and all most people seem to do is go tisk tisk. Now, some of them may just not know. I mean, it may purely be ignorance. By ignorance, I don't mean stupidity. I mean, they don't have the knowledge. They don't know that the rights are being violated. They don't know that what's being done is a violation of their rights. All they see is a government check or a government program buying off the American people. And understanding that if they don't do what they're told, they won't get their check. See, to me, this is it's not a surprising time, but it's a depressing time. And it's a depressing time because all of this was easily anticipated. And even when it happened, the vast majority of the American people have done nothing. And what really scares me is when I do see people that are up in arms and are talking about this and asking how frequently what they want to do is not only not unconstitutional, it is sometimes as bad as what they're complaining about. And a lot of it looks an awful lot like 1789 and the French Revolution. I see people calling for people's grand juries that we will try the elite. Is that really any different than what happened in France? We complain about the government looking at the people saying, well, let them eat cake. How many people are ready to turn around and violate the rules to get the people they think are violating the rules? Now, I'm not saying that politicians don't include crooks and criminals, and that if they violate the law, they should be, again, charged, tried, and punished in that order. We must do it that way. But I don't condone what happened in Washington on January 6th, but I do understand it. You see, we had a lot of people making outrageous, unconstitutional claims, and since most of the American people have no idea what the Constitution says, they believed them. When Ken Paxton in Texas sued Pennsylvania and Georgia and Wisconsin and Michigan and whatever, I thought that was a great idea. I cheered until I read his complaint and realized that Ken Paxton was asking the Supreme Court to do exactly what he was complaining that the Supreme Court of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania did, to interfere with the state's elections in violation of the Constitution. What really infuriated me was he had a really good case. If all he had done is said, listen, the Constitution says the manner of choosing electors is the sole discretion of the legislature of the states. These states violated either their judicial branch changed the manner, or their executive branch changed the manner, or both. Therefore, those appointment of electors are invalid. We want your opinion on that. And use that to justify not counting those electors. But he didn't. He kind of mentioned that and rushed right by it and said, look at all the bad things they did. You tell them that's bad. You tell them to change their elections because we don't like the way they did them. I don't like the way they did them, but I have no authority to tell another state how to conduct their elections. But I do know that those states violated the Constitution, and that very important point was lost because a man made claims and people believed him, and those claims had no legal or constitutional basis. And then we had Louis Gohmert, who said that the vice president had the authority to only count the votes he wanted. You know, I kind of like Louis Gohmert until he opened his mouth with this nonsense. The idea that the sitting administration gets to choose who gets to vote? Really? No wonder it got shot down. But again, most people don't read the Constitution. So a lot of people believed that Pence had the legal authority to challenge the vote and change the outcome of the election. Even if the election was full of fraud, it was an election. But if just because other people broke the rules, you're going to violate the law. I'm glad Pence stood up and says, I have no legal authority to do that, because that was true. But people had been told the lie and believed the lie, and they were mad because they're getting all this bad information. They're seeing the malfeasance. They're seeing nobody doing anything about it. And when they hear, hey, this could fix the problem, it's our last shot. Even if it's wrong, even if it's not true, they believed it in their ignorance. So I don't know about all of them, but I believe a significant portion of the people that acted out in anger and violence on January 6th did so in part because they were misinformed. We're seeing the destruction of the republic. We're seeing the destruction of the power of the states. We are seeing a ruling oligarchy taking over. And it's been happening for decades, and I've been warning about it for years. And everyone said, well, my wife says, well, it happened so fast. No, it's been building up for a long time. All it took was a trigger. And now that governments have seen that the vast majority of the American people will shut up and do what they're told, that the American people will do whatever the people who cut the checks say, that people will sit down and shut up if they give them a $600 check, that they'll wear masks that the science doesn't prove, that they'll voluntarily shut down their businesses, they'll shut down their lives, they'll wrap themselves in plastic and hide in their homes because a government official tells them to. What makes you think they'll stop? Oh, sure, now that Biden's in office, all of a sudden the state's saying, we have to open up, we got to go back to business, we got to go back to school. Well, what happens the next time they need an emergency? New York is trying to pass a law that says, listen, if the governor thinks you've been in contact with someone who might have a contagious disease, he can put you in a camp or some other facility. We had internment camps in America. We put thousands of American citizens in camps because they were of Japanese descent. Are we looking at a state saying we're going to put American citizens in camps because we think they might have been in contact with someone who is contagious? It says nothing about COVID, just contagious. This is the future of America, and it's the future we have because the American people have been sitting on their butts waiting for someone else to fix the problem. Well, Paul, that sounds like an awful lot of bad stuff. It is an awful lot of bad stuff. And I hope right about now, everybody that's watching this, either live or on video, I hope you are quaking a bit in your boots. But as I'm often asked, what do we do? Well, I will tell you right now, there is no quick fix for Washington. There is no quick fix for your state house. What you need to do is you need to start local. You need to learn what the Constitution says. You need to meet with your sheriff and make sure that he or she is prepared to defend your rights. Recognize they are elected by the people. They serve the people. They are not servants of the state government. They are not servants of the federal government. They are the chief law enforcement officer of the county. You need to make sure in your county that your rights will be protected. Because it will do no good to fight for what's going on in Washington if when you go home, the jackboots come for you. If your rights are destroyed, if the Fourth Amendment is ignored, if your First Amendment is ignored, if your state constitution is ignored, you can fight them, but if you have no protection at home, that's a dangerous place. So yes, learn the Constitution. It's the supreme law of the land. Learn the Constitution of your state. By the way, I'm working with an organization. They are working on classes. They're trying to write a class that will teach you about your state constitution for each of the 50 states. It's called Institute on the Constitution. If you want more information, please head over to the website, my website, constitutionstudy.com. I've been putting it in most of my stuff. You can find them. They are looking for people to help organize them to write a version of the curriculum for their state's constitution. Learn it. And then make sure that you and your family live in a county where you will be defended. See, only when we're safe in our counties will we really have the security to fix our states. And the only way to fix the federal government is to first fix our states. There's some very powerful language in the Constitution. I'll be teaching about it in this year's homeschool series. FYI, I'm looking at going to homeschool conferences. So if you've got a conference in your area and you think it'd be a great idea for me to be there, to either to have a table or to speak, let me know. I have a packet I've put together that I will send to any of these conferences. If they're interested, I'll do whatever I can to make it happen, because it's important for us to understand how important it is to understand the Constitution and then understand to defend it, to defend ourselves, to defend our neighbors, and to have a sheriff that will do so as well. Maybe then, maybe, they say, well, in 2 years, they'll flip the Congress again. Big deal. Donkeys, elephants, both of them have been destroying our rights. No, to get Washington and back under control, we have to get our state houses back under control. To get our state houses back under control, we need to make sure that our counties are under control and that our rights will be protected, because otherwise, as soon as we step out to fix them, we'll get cut off at the knees. We need people who will watch our backs, and the first line of defense is your county sheriff. So with that, I've been getting a bunch of comments in. Let me take a look at some of those, and we'll see what's going on. Can I speak about what laws Congress may pass and what laws they can't, and whether a law should rather be passed in the state legislature? Said, okay, it's really very simple. The 10th Amendment says that any power not specifically delegated to the federal government remains with the states. In fact, let me pull up the text, because you know me, I like to make sure I'm quoting things properly. The 10th Amendment says, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by to the states, are reserved to the states, or to the, respectively, or to the people. So the only laws Congress can pass have to be within the constructs, within the confines of the Constitution, a power delegated to Congress by the Constitution. Well, what powers are delegated to Congress? Well, the place to look is Article 1, Section 8. There's a few more scattered around, but when we're talking about laws and what they can do, you want to go to Article 1, Section 8. It lists 17 specific powers delegated to Congress. There's two I want you to look at closely. I believe it's Clause 17 says, Congress has the power to, quote, to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or office thereof. So the only laws Congress has the power to pass are to implement powers specified in the Constitution. Any law not made pursuant to the Constitution, well, here, let me back up a second. Article 6, Clause 2 says this Constitution and the laws of the United States, actually, let me bring this up. I'll let you guys want to watch what I'm doing here? Let me share my screen. And where'd it go? There we go. So I'll share this up. This is what I'm looking at. This is from the National Archives, right? So Article 6, Clause 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties which shall be made or under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. So only federal laws made pursuant to the Constitution. That means not simply that it was voted on by both houses and signed by the president, meaning it has to be within the power and scope of the Constitution. Now, what about a federal law that is not made pursuant to the Constitution? Well, I'm going to go to my old friend Alexander Hamilton in Federalist Papers number 78. We read this. There is no position which depends on clearer principles than that every act of a delegated authority contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised is void. Void, empty, of no value, meaningless. Now stop and think a second. Go back to Article 1, Section 8. Look at those things. If a law is not made pursuant to those things, it is void. Well, Paul, I mean, that's only Alexander Hamilton. That was the Federalist Papers. Does that really mean anything? I mean, what does the Supreme Court say? Well, who here has heard of the case Marbury versus Madison? Chief Justice Marshall, and I'm going to try and quote him from memory, said that any law, any act of Congress repugnant to the Constitution any act of a legislature repugnant to the Constitution is void, meaningless, empty. So when your sheriff gets a little bit of cold feet and says, well, the court said, hey, wait a second, the court said that if it's not made pursuant to the Constitution, it's empty. How do you break a law that's empty? See, when we understand the Constitution, we understand that these laws that people are talking about and are so worried about, that they're void, that they're empty, that they are meaningless. Why do we pay attention to it? Well, sure, just like the emperor had no clothes, right? The government's going to force you. They're going to come in and they're going to stand up, which is why we cannot do it alone. It's why you need neighbors and a sheriff. There's a video I used it in one of my one of my other videos of, I believe it was a restaurant in Buffalo, New York, the Empire. And the health inspector came in without a warrant and with 2 deputies. And the health inspector and the deputies were driven out of the business because the owner and the people, the owner knew his rights, was willing to stand up and enforce his rights, and the people backed him. When he told them, you don't have a warrant, you're trespassing, leave. When the sheriff said, we're just trying to do your job, no, your job is to enforce legal laws. This is a violation of my rights. Your job is to protect my rights. Your job is to remove a trespasser. Do it. We can stand up. It's just when we think we're alone and we do it alone, if you're the one nail that's sticking up, you're going to get hammered. But you ever notice a bed of nails, when you've got a couple thousand nails sticking up, they can lift a lot of weight. So let's see, Jan asked, so what do we do if the courts no longer support the Constitution? What next? Convention of the states won't help, revolution. You know, I know there's a part of us that wants to fight. We get our dander up. What we do is recognize peaceful non-compliance. Remember those words, please. Not civil disobedience. They'll call it civil disobedience all day long. It is peaceful non-compliance with void laws. If a law is void, I am not bound to support it. If a law is void, if a rule is void, if a regulation is void, if an executive order is void, I am not bound to it. Now, does that mean the government won't try to bully me into complying? Sure they will. And you know what? The vast majority of the American people are not prepared to stand up to bullies. But what we need is when the people who are strong enough actually stand up to the bullies, we need to rush to their side and support them. If you live near, was it Atlas Gym in New Jersey, or the Dallas, Texas hairdresser, or any one of these people, where you see they've stood up to government, support them. Go to their business, make a point of doing business with them, because they're standing up doesn't only protect their rights, it protects your rights as well. I met with my sheriff. I met with him several months ago, and we had a great talk. I have a pretty, so far it seems to be a pretty constitutional sheriff. I haven't seen him put to the test yet, but we had a wonderful discussion. And I told him, I said, what I want from you is real simple. When I pick up the phone and dial 911, when your deputy shows up, I want them to understand their job is to protect the rights of the people involved. Their job is not to enforce state law. It's not to enforce federal law. It's not even to enforce county law. It is to first and foremost protect the rights of the people involved. You do that, I told him, and you have my permission. Call me up. You need support. If you stand up to a tyrant, if you stand up to an illegal law, If you stand up to a regulation, I will stand with you. Now, we were talking about some of the gun confiscations. I said, if you stand up against those gun confiscations, I will stand with you. I will support you. I will give everything, whatever I have, to make sure that you are not alone. See, it's that loneliness that makes us vulnerable. It's the fact that individuals are standing up. Who here has seen the video of the mom being tased and arrested for not wearing a mask? Did you look at the faces of the people, other people on that video, with the exception of the victim's mom? And yes, she was a victim. Everyone either, ooh, video, or looked away in shame. Who stood up for her except her mother? Who stood up and said, no, wait a second, officer, that's not right. You want to give her a citation? That's fine. You laying hands on her, you are breaking federal law. You're violating your oath. You are breaking federal law. I'm gathering evidence to present to the U.S. attorney because you have broken the law. 18 U.S.C. 242. Because he tased her, you are subject to up to 10 years in jail for using violence to deprive her of her rights under color of law. No one did. And the video that I saw, the lady taking the video asked whoever she was sitting with, gee, I wonder if he's even a real police officer. We have to stop standing around and watching everyone else's rights being destroyed because if we don't protect their rights, no one will protect ours. All right. Let's see. Unapologetic thoughts on writ of quo warranto. Okay, I don't think I'm not familiar with that term. Let's take a look here. A writ of quo warranto. Let's see if I can find out real quick because it's probably just Latin for something I've already heard. A writ of quo warranto is Old English practice. Well, okay. A writ of quo warranto, this is, by the way, from the Free Legal Dictionary, is a legal proceeding during which an individual's right to hold an office of government privilege is challenged. Well, first of all, it's English, it's not American. Second of all, everyone's right to hold office is under challenge. The people voted. Now you may say, well, the election was stolen. Well, whose fault is that? The American people let this election be stolen. Don't point the fingers at the secretaries of state and the governors and the mayors and the county commissioners. They may have been culpable, but you let it happen because you stood back and let your employees in your name violate state election law. So before we go saying, oh, I've got a writ, let's recognize that the reason that person is in office is because of the American people. Getting someone booted out of office because you came up with a writ doesn't fix the problem. All it does increase the enmity, but it doesn't fix the problem. I don't think I fully understand what happened in DC. I know I don't fully understand what happened in DC. I wasn't there. But based on the reports I've heard, the vast majority of by people who were there, this is reporting by people who were at the scene, both of the original peaceful demonstration and of the break-in at the Capitol. Right? The number of people who broke into the Capitol was relatively small. Why they did it, a lot of them I think felt frustrated. I don't have proof, I haven't met them or psychoanalyzed them, but I think a lot of them were frustrated in large part because they had been told there were solutions that really weren't. And when those solutions failed, they were frustrated and they were angry. And let's face it, we've spent years being told that if you believe in rights, if you believe in justice, Heck, if you're just a Republican or you voted for Donald Trump, you are a gay bashing, hateful, Nazi, despicable, less than human being. People are going to get mad after a while. It doesn't justify what they did, but I understand why they did it. And the, it's, I don't know what else to say about it, but, again, I wasn't there, but based on the reports I've heard from people who physically were there, and again, I'm not saying everybody was based on that, but I believe a lot of people in Washington that day were very frustrated because they thought someone had pulled a rabbit out of the hat, and didn't turn out to work. Do you think a patriot party can be infiltrated by bad actors? Well, any group can be infiltrated with bad actors. But let's face it, I believe George Washington was correct. I believe the spirit of party is the destruction of the nation. Let me find that quote here. The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetuated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. Does that sound familiar, folks? It is. Parties are part of the problem. You want to know why there's so much polarization, dissension? In large part is because of the spirit of party and the dissension that comes. And when one party takes power from another, their desire for revenge. But continuing on, this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the mind of men to seek security and response and absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. Can you think of a better description of the 2016 election, the 2020 election? What do you think is going to happen in 2022 and 2024 elections? Do you really think it's going to get better? Washington went on, it serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one party against another, foments occasionally riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influences and corruption, which finds a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passions. Thus, the policy and the will of one country are subjected to the policies and will of another party. If you are looking for a political party to fix the problem, understand political parties are a large part of the problem. If you're looking for someone to sit at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and fix this mess, you are looking in the wrong place. Can parties be infiltrated? Yeah. I don't trust a political party anywhere. I'm sorry, I don't. I remember it was Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, who helped push the income tax. It was George W. Bush, a Republican, that gave us the Patriot Act that destroyed the Fourth Amendment. It was a Republican who said, you know what, those bump stocks, we're going to simply reclassify them. The parties are not the solution. They want you to think they are. They are not. As long as you are voting for, I don't care if it's a donkey, if it's an elephant, or whatever, if your vote is based on membership in a party, you're doing exactly what they did in Soviet Russia, Mao's China, Pol Pot's Cambodia. When party is the issue, all you're doing is picking your despots. Okay, let's see exactly people take back. Well, first of all, unapologetic, like I say, Quo Warranto, it's not the people taking back the office, because the office belongs to the people. Understand, the person who holds that office did so either because a vast majority, either because a majority of the people they represent voted for that person, or they allowed the levers of power, the mechanisms of election to be corrupted to illegally place a person in office. That office belongs to you. Your representative, that office belongs to you. That representative is your employee. They are a public servant. They work for you. If a person was elected that was unqualified for office, that's the fault of the American people. Why try to remove somebody from office who's unqualified? Why not prevent them from getting in office in the first place? Is it easy? No. But if look at it this way, how many people are having a conniption fit because they impeached Trump for the second time? What do you think happens when you try to do the same, almost the exact same thing to someone else's candidate? See, we always scream when it's our cow getting gored. The issue is not to find ways to manipulate the system to get people we don't like out. The answer is to educate the people so that we elect the right people in. And that comes down to education, and it comes down to being to speaking in public and letting people know the truth of what's going on. And you're not going to convince everybody. Oh, they're just fine, sound minds are going to explain what's going on. Everything is a conspiracy. This is deception. That, hey, well, you know, XROC. I have no idea how to pronounce that, if it's even possible. You're right. We can't change people's minds. All we can do is provide evidence. See, I'm not responsible for what some other person thinks. All we can do is provide evidence, provide argument, to be reasonable, and then do what is right based on what we know. See, we keep worrying about an outcome 3 steps later. I've been having a debate with someone on YouTube, and you know what? I really doubt I'm ever going to convince this person of my evidence. He's not interested in the evidence. He's not interested in what I have to say. Fine. Why do I keep talking to him? Because he's not the only one reading the comments. But by having a rational, reasonable, at least on my end, discussion, presenting facts, maybe I'll change some. If you look at a lot of the voting patterns, you don't need to change a large percentage of the people to start making a serious improvement. Really, you just need to start, you know, we have really, really big problems. But again, don't focus on DC. Who is running for office in your county? Who is running for office in your state? If your state representative and your state senator have no clue who you are, if they've never met you face to face, if they have no idea what your position would be on a topic in general, then you haven't done your job as a citizen. You're being lazy and just saying, well, I voted for them, let them go do the work. No, you need to be engaged with them. We talk about, whoops, hang on, my camera was going a little crazy there. Let me make sure I still got my camera set up right. There we go. Voting is not the end all be all of holding your elected representatives accountable. Voting is how you hire an employee. Now, if you hire an employee for 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, and you pay no attention to them during that time, you are not doing your job. Stop looking for the vote to be everything. I don't, okay, the guy I preferred didn't win. It doesn't matter to me. I still need to be in touch with my rep and my senator and remind them They work for us. They are servants, they are employees, and we need to treat them that way. Sometimes right down to how we address them, to tell them, listen, you swore an oath, or you affirmed an oath. You support the Constitution of the United States, possibly of the state you reside in. I'm going to hold you to that oath. Not simply, I won't vote for you. I will find, if you won't uphold your oath, I will find every opportunity to let every one of your constituents I can know that you are a liar and a fraud. How do you think that's going to go for their campaign? If you have a liar and a fraud in office, if you went around making sure that the people at least had access to the information, does it change their mind? I don't know. It's taken us 150 years to make this mess. We're not going to fix it overnight, and we're not going to fix it in an election cycle. It's not simply about the vote. It's about us doing our jobs as citizens to hold our elected officials accountable. Do you think it's important to remain on big tech platforms? If we all leave, they win. And you're right. I'm still on Twitter. I mean, Facebook has completely banned me. I'm still on Twitter. I'm still on YouTube. I've added, I'm on Rumble. I'll be back on Parler when they come back up. I've added Telegram. I think I'm going to add Gab. But for some reason, MeWe just doesn't seem to settle with me. Every time I think about going to MeWe, it just doesn't feel right. So that's why I haven't done MeWe. But all those others, I'm still there. And by the way, I've also set up all my information on my own website where I have the most control. So yeah, let's not hide from opposition, but let's not compromise with them as well. Again, unapologetic Christian, I think you're missing the point. The problem is much bigger than simply getting somebody out who was illegally elected to office, who broke the law to get in the office. You know, you're at that point, you're the mechanic on the Titanic trying to fix a deck chair while the boat's sinking. Would you rather fix your car after it was in an accident, or would you rather not be in the accident in the first place? If we take all of our time and effort and focus on the losses, we aren't spending time figuring out what to do to fix the problem. If it was simply, you know what, we had a couple of bad elections, that's one thing. If everything was running smoothly, if everybody was following the Constitution, if people were voting based on a candidate's fidelity to their oath to the Constitution, and you had a few bad actors, that's one thing. We have thousands of elected officers that are ignoring their oath to support the constitutions of their state and of the United States. We need to fix that. Before we start bailing out, we need to plug the leak. Because let's face it, okay, let's say you get your writ. Let's say you do get a candidate and you get them thrown out. Who's going to fill that position? Another backstabbing, lying fraud in the political machine. You've replaced one bad actor with another bad actor who got in a different way. Until we choose better people, let's put it this way, if you arrested all the crooks in all of our capitals, state and federal, they'd be mostly empty. At least I believe they'd be mostly empty. I believe if we swept the halls of power of everybody who violated their oath, Right? Let's forget the legal. If we took everybody who violated their oath of office and we removed them from all the capitals, echoes. If you're going to stop a boat from sinking, the first thing you do is stop the leak. Yeah, you can bail, but if you don't stop the leak, you're just bringing more bad water in with it. Okay. We are the leaders we've been waiting for. Well, no, but we're the leaders that we have. We're the leaders that we've chosen. Why do we have Biden as president? Because a significant portion of the American people voted for him, voted for electors for him. Now, was some of those votes illegal? Yeah, I believe there's plenty of evidence of that. Did people break the law to get there? I believe so. And the people who let that happen work for the very same people who are complaining. The people that are complaining about the elections in Georgia and Pennsylvania and all that, the people who let it happen work for the people of those states. And the people of those states let them get away with it for year after year after year. We were not faithful in the small things. When fraud was a minor thing, we didn't worry about it. We said, it was not widespread. When they said, you know what, we got to make, we have to make voting easier. We have to loosen the rules, and by doing so, open to the potential of fraud. We all sat back and said, okay. And now we've been bit in the backside by it, and we're looking for someone else to blame. Look right in the mirror. And by the way, I'm just as guilty. I didn't make a stink over any of those laws. I complained about a few of them. It's our fault. And the sooner we recognize that, the sooner we can start making changes. Okay, hey, Tunnel Lord. Oh, it's been an interesting one in Tunnel Lord. It's been interesting in the live stream. Oh, wait a second. You're the president-elect. I guess you can't legally be the office of the former president. By the way, I thought that was hilarious when Trump did that, kind of a poke in the eye of Biden in his office of the president-elect. Okay. Do you think a convention of states would be beneficial or more detrimental to the reclaiming of the Constitution? BSH, this is, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who don't like what I have to hear. I do not think, while a convention of the states is absolutely constitutional, I have no problem with that. I have two serious issues. One is, well, actually, I can wrap it up in one issue. The Constitution, the Congress, the federal government, the state governments have been ignoring the Constitution for decades. What good is a new amendment going to do? They ignore the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the 14th Amendment. They ignore it. They say they come up with new and inventive ways to abuse the 20th Amendment, the 25th Amendment. What good is a new amendment going to do? You are taking a Ferrari and putting it in the hands of Mr. Magoo. Fixing the car isn't the problem. Fixing the driver is the problem. So no, I don't think it'll be beneficial. I think it will. It's quite likely it will be manipulated, and rather than fixing the problem, we're going to spend years fighting in the states to prevent more bad things from happening. We're going to end up fighting to prevent the abolishment of the Second Amendment, the repeal of the Second Amendment, the repeal of the Electoral College, the repeal of parts of the Fourth Amendment. I think what we're going to do is we're going to end up having to fight in the states to protect the rights we still have, not because the Convention of States is a bad thing, but because we have bad people in positions of power that will manipulate it to their own ends. But that is by it. That's an excellent question. I get that I get that question a lot, and I'm glad you asked it because I think it's important. Is it true that the 14th Amendment made the corporation ex Rossi? Absolutely not. This U.S. corporation is barnyard substance. It is backguano. It is wrong. Even if, and again, there's nothing in the 14th Amendment that turns us into a corporation, but even if the federal government tried to create a corporation, what did I say before? There's no authority in the Constitution for them to do that. Therefore, any act to do that would be void, empty, meaningless. This is another, there's a whole series of these things where people glom onto this idea to find a way to get mad about things, and we don't stop and think it through. Look at, actually, here, let's do this. You asked specifically about the 14th Amendment. Let me find, here we go. So where'd you go? There you go. So let's go here. I will go to the National Archives, 14th Amendment. All persons born and naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make any or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within jurisdiction of the equal protection of the laws. Nothing about corporations there. Okay, let's see. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. But when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for president or vice president of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive or judicial officers of the state, or members of the legislature thereof, is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged except for participation in rebellion or other crime. The basis of representation therein shall be reduced in proportion which the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such a state. Nothing about a corporation there. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or in any state, who, having previously taken an oath as member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same state or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, the Congress may, by vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Nothing about a corporation there. Section 4, the validity of public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss of emancipation of slaves, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Nothing about a corporation there. Section 5, the Congress shall have power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. See, there is nothing in the 14th Amendment that says anything about a corporation. So that's kind of my point. I want to get into something at the end of in a few minutes, because I want to show you guys something I've been working on. But I think it's important that we read and study for two reasons. And one of them is this: it inoculates us against stupid ideas, right? So when someone says, hey, the 14th Amendment turned us in the US into a corporation. Wait a second, I've read the 14th Amendment. There's nothing about a corporation there. It inoculates us against those ideas. Ex-Rossi, absolutely. Do Black people really have no rights since there's no such thing as African American or Black in the law? Absolutely false. That is absolute hogwash. What did we just read in the 14th Amendment? Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. 14th Amendment. We just saw that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. right? This is racist nonsense. It is trying to it's trying to race bait people. It's trying to get people angry about something that just plain isn't true. And in fact, nowhere in the Constitution does it say anything about blacks. Even the infamous 3/5 clause says nothing about race. It says it's dealt with servitude. Do you recommend changing our status or staying like secured party creditor? Not sure what you mean about that one, X-Rossi. A secured party creditors. Not sure what that's in relation to. That's one of the hard things with doing these through comments is sometimes the thread gets broken up and I can't always follow it. So if you can ask that in a little more detail, I'll be more than happy to try to do that. What prohibits Texas from leaving the Union according to the Constitution? There is no language in the Constitution that authorizes a state to back out of the deal. A state has signed a compact. There is no exit clause. So by definition, should a state secede from the Union, they are breaking the contract. It's as simple as that. And I believe there's a lot of good reasons why our founding fathers did not give us an easy exit clause, because it'd be real simple for a state to use that as a bludgeon to say, listen, do what I want or I'm seceding, kind of like some people in Texas try to do every so often. So there is no language in the Constitution that allows for secession.
Hello, Paul.
Yes.
You might want to read Amendment 10, because the power to secede is not prohibited to the states, and Amendment 10 in the U.S. Constitution particularly reserves those powers to the states that are not expressly prohibited to them.
Well, what did I remember? What I said? I said there's nothing in the Constitution that authorizes a secession. If you secede from the Union, they're breaking the contract.
No, you're not getting Amendment 10. Amendment 10 prohibits the states that the powers have to be specifically granted to the federal government, but any power that is not specifically prohibited to the state is not prohibited to the states.
We're not talking about powers delegated to the federal government.
I know we're talking about powers not prohibited to the states, and nowhere in the Constitution will you see that that power is prohibited to the states. Therefore, it's reserved to the states.
That's an argument, and
it's clearly written. If you want, read Amendment 10.
I understand your point. I'm under basic contract law, which the Constitution's a compact. It's a contract.
Yeah, same as the Declaration.
No, the Declaration's an announcement. It's not a contract.
It is too. Read the definitions for contract.
If this is the Dan I'm thinking of, we've been through this round and round before. All right. It is a declaration of what was done.
Anyway, the original comment, it has to do with the secession of the state. Show me in the Constitution where it prohibits to the states the power to secede from the Union.
You are correct. It does not prohibit the power of the states to the Union.
Amendment 10 then reserves that right or that power to the states or to the people of that state. Correct? Read Amendment 10. Come on, you can pull it right up and read it.
No, I've read it. I've read it dozens of times. My issue isn't whether or not it's prohibited to the states. My question is it a power of the contract? I should say, is it a power of the compact? It's the same thing.
Of course it is.
Well, let me use a slightly different example and see if because I'm not opposed. In other words, I'm not saying that the Constitution forbids it. I'm saying it doesn't specifically allow it, other than it, like you said, it's inferred in the 10th Amendment.
Amendment 10 is very clear.
Again, it infers that power, but like any other treaty or compact, by doing so, you effectively break the contract.
No. If a state is not,
if Texas leaves, they've broken their relationship to the compact. Now,
no, sir.
Yes, they backed out. If they leave, they've backed out of the compact.
The compact or the Constitution still stands among all the states that were part of it. Any state who wishes to leave is not prohibited by Amendment 10.
Yes, all right. I concede that point. I'm not saying a state can't leave. I'm just saying there's no provision in the Constitution for them to do so. Thereby,
doesn't
they
have to
basically
be.
have to. They have to absolve themselves. They're walking away. They are not only are they no longer part of the Union, they no longer have anything to do with the Constitution at all.
That's right. They become a free and independent state separate from the United States of
Yes.
America, sort of like
Yes.
Italy or whatever.
And with all of the baggage that becomes part of it.
With regard to the states reserve all the powers that they have not expressly prohibited to
Yes.
themselves by way of the Constitution.
Right. So as I said, there's no language in the Constitution about secession. They're basically saying we don't like this agreement anymore. We're leaving. We're breaking the compact, and they
have every right to do so.
There's nothing that stops them. Right. And along with I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying there's not a mechanism in the Constitution. Therefore, it is a severance of the Constitution from their standpoint.
They are severing themselves from the Constitution and from the nation. Yep.
Yes, they are doing so.
Yep. But the Constitution still stands for all the other states that remain part of it.
Oh yeah, for all the other states, yes.
No.
Just as the Constitution itself didn't change when states entered, the Constitution doesn't change when states leave.
All right. I must have misunderstood you because I thought you were saying that they didn't have the power to secede.
No, I'm just saying there's nothing in the Constitution about secession that if a state secedes, they are basically breaking their vow to the compact. It's not a it's not like Brexit. It's not like we're going to vote and we're going to break some of the relationship, but not other parts of the relationship. They're literally saying we walk away from it, and they then again because they have all the powers of any state. Right?
How can that be
maybe
breaking?
I didn't explain.
How can that be breaking
their relationship?
The contract?
No, I said they're breaking their relationship to the compact.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. My misunderstanding.
They've backed out. They're gone. They're saying we agree. They agreed when they ratified the Constitution to participate in this union. They're saying we're breaking that and we are removing ourselves.
Okay, I misunderstood. Sorry.
Yep, that's okay. I may not have explained it properly. Sometimes these get a little confusing. Texas AG vows to sue any federal overreach with this new administration. Well, all right, so anti-federalist. Part of me says big fat hairy deal because the AG is going to sue in a federal court. So the AG is going to sue the federal government in a court run by the federal government. The odds are stacked against him. And B, unless he can make a better argument than the one he did about the election, good luck. It just, here's the issue. As kind of like we were just saying, the states have power. The states don't need the federal government's approval to enforce the compact that is the Constitution, right? The AG can sue. Texas can simply say, listen, what this administration has done is a violation of the Constitution. We will not comply. We will not support it. We will not spend money on it. No, it's a violation. It is null and void. The federal government is a creation of the states. The states, they don't have to go begging to the federal government for that. They merely have to say, not on my watch. If the other states want to let it happen, be my guest, but we're not gonna. Interesting enough, Kansas tried that about 10 years ago, and the state government folded like a cheap suit as soon as they got challenged. I'm new to blockchain technology, but I've seen where social media companies are moving to blockchain because they can't be affected by a central power. I just passed blockchain giving away for blockchain companies. Okay, blockchain, understand what blockchain is. Blockchain is a technology to keep records. The blockchain itself is simply a way of keeping records. Now, the way it works is you get a bunch of computers. They're called nodes. They're called master nodes. And basically, the way it works is one of the nodes says, I've got an update to the ledger, right? Whatever it is. And does everybody agree on it? Everybody agrees on it. Okay, we record it. And it goes over and over and over and over. Now, there is, people say, well, you know, it can't be affected by a central power. That's not true. If a central power controls all the nodes, the central power is in charge. That's why a national cryptocurrency doesn't fix any financial problems, right? But remember, all blockchain itself does is record information, and it's an attempt to be immutable, because in order to make a change, everybody has to agree to it. And the rules that are written in the code usually say you cannot change a block that has already been recorded, right? Now, the problem is that's digital. And trust me, every system can be hacked. So, you know, blockchain is cool for a lot of things, but understand that all blockchain is a recording technology. So think of it this way. Let's say we're social media. Let's say we were recording all of these comments in blockchain. So BSH, when you typed in your comment and you hit enter, let's say that everybody on the live stream said, here's the comment. One of us got elected to say, I vote to approve this. Does everybody agree? Everybody agrees. Boom. The comment gets recorded, pops up on everybody's screen. That's all it is. So I've heard it being used for voting, and of course it's used for cryptocurrencies and other things, but I've yet to see a solution where blockchains are a magic cure-all for any of our real problems. Am I going to Gab? I think I'm going to Gab. I haven't signed up for Gab yet, but I think I'm going to Gab. I am on Telegram. I am still on Twitter, and what else am I on? I'm on Periscope. I'm on, or the live streams are on Periscope. I'm on Telegram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Rumble. I think that's it for now. Okay. Oh God, you've been asked about the 17th in terms of the court. Yeah, I thought that was false too. Cool. What do you gain leaving the compact anyways? Well, okay, let's take an example. Let's say a state wants to leave the union. They want to leave the compact. It's happened before. It was called, we ended up calling it the Civil War. Unless of course you live down here in the South, and they call it they call it other things. What happens? Well, first of all, the state then, because they are no longer part of the union, they're completely independent. Probably the first thing I have to do is come up with money, because they're no longer part of the United States. Therefore, they no longer have legal access to U.S. currency. Now, they could probably try to come up with an agreement with the United States to use U.S. dollars as their currency, but the state no longer has a currency. Let's see, the state would probably have their militia. They'd still have military. You know what they don't have is they don't have foreign policy. Now, their governor may have flown all over the world trying to make deals, but they have no foreign policy. They have no treaties with other nations, so they have no method of trade, because all the treaties were with the Union. What else would they not have? Sure, they wouldn't have to deal with federal regulations, but I'm pretty sure they would pretty quickly come around and write their own regulations to do that. So I really don't see a benefit other than an emotional one for a state seceding from the Union. Why the hell would you want to leave anyway? Well, I know a lot of reasons why I see we may want to leave. But then again, I think I'd much prefer fixing the problem, because, you know, look at it this way. Millions of people every year try to come here. That should tell you that America, as bad as things are right now, America is still a heck of a lot better than most of the world. So, yeah. Why did the Supreme Court say that states can't leave? I just remember that. I'm not sure with the specific case you're talking about. Obviously, we fought a war about whether or not states could leave the Union. But also remember, the Supreme Court is not the final arbiter of what the Constitution says. All right, back to the 10th Amendment. Article 3 does not give the federal courts the authority to determine what the Constitution means. Therefore, that power is reserved to the states. It's not denied to the states, therefore it's reserved to the states. Excuse me. And trust me, Anti-Federalists, someone's gonna be mad at this. If you want to know what the Constitution says, don't ask a judge. Don't ask a lawyer, read it yourself, because they don't study the Constitution in law school. How do I know? I read way too many Supreme Court opinions, and if I didn't recognize that these were generally intelligent people, I think they'd have a reading disorder, because they just have they can't seem to read the plain words on the paper. Hello, Dan, you got your hand up again. What's up?
Yes, sir. I think perhaps some of the best evidence that the states have power over the federal government would be Article 5, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, because only the states have the authority to amend the Constitution.
That's right.
You also have the fact, the 10th Amendment, that says only powers that were delegated to the federal government remain with the federal government. But I think the most powerful is the fact that the Constitution was not valid until it was ratified by the states. And it was the Constitution that creates the federal government.
Yep.
All three branches.
So if there's anything unclear in that Constitution, that seems like that question of vagueness would have to go before the states for clarity, wouldn't it, instead of the courts?
If we bothered following the Constitution, yes. Now the courts, understand, the courts, Alexander Hamilton, again, Federal 78, says courts have neither force nor will. They control neither the wallet or they have neither force or will, neither the purse nor the sword of the nation. They have only opinion. When a federal court issues is not a ruling, it's an opinion. Thank you very much for your opinion, but if even the other two branches of government, I said when the court said that even though the executive branch had the authority to not count citizens in the census, but they didn't like the way he did it, Trump did it, so they're going to say no. My advice to Trump was, I would have written him and said, thank you very much for your opinion. You said I can legally do it, so I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, what are you going to do about it? Okay, so let's see. It's been talked about because many states do not follow the Constitution, Texas GOP chair. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I was teaching a class earlier this week, and take a little bit of time one of these days. Start looking at the amendments after the Bill of Rights, right? 11 through 27. And look at how many times the states, because remember, an amendment only becomes valid if it's ratified by the states. Look at how many times the states gave their power to the federal government. 11, not so much. 12, not so much. But starting with the 13th Amendment, right after the Civil War, what do you see? You see power being given to the federal government. Power to enforce the removal of slavery, powers to determine citizenship, powers to enforce state different aspects of state law, power to deny the use of alcohol, power to allow the use of alcohol but to still enforce state law, power to tax. All of these powers where they're taking powers away from the states all did that to themselves. People who worked for the citizens of those states did that to themselves. I had a conversation back just after the election with a constitutional expert, someone who has spent 10 years defending the Electoral College. And I loved it. I showed her something in the Constitution she'd never realized before. And I don't blame her. She's a lawyer. And forget the lawyer jokes. They don't teach the Constitution. They almost nowhere do they teach the Constitution in law school anymore. No, most of the problems would be fixed overnight if we stopped complying with null and void laws. Actually, Tunnel Lord, if the American people were to suddenly stop complying with null and void laws, you would see. You think DC is a military town now? Wait till you see what happens if people were to suddenly stop complying with the law without, especially without setting the groundwork first. And I'm not saying we should. Right? Let me rephrase it. I am saying we should stop complying with laws. I think we should be a little strategic about it, and I think we should be intelligent about it, because let me give you an example. Last spring, I was at an event in a town not far from where I live. That county had literally the week before the event, the county passed a mask mandate. Now, if you follow me, you know public mask mandates are illegal. There's not, it's depriving you of your liberty without due process of law. So a private business can do it on their property, but public cannot. So when I showed up, the organizer said, "Listen, we should be fine. Don't worry about it." When I got there, I got set up. The organizer came to my table and said, "Boy, all about this." And I handed her a little placard I had made up where I listed all the laws, all the Constitution and federal laws that were violated by a mask mandate. Her response was, "Well, if the police show up, I'm sending them to your table." I said, "Be my guest." Part of that was not being, it's one thing to stand up and say, hell no, we won't go. It's quite another to simply say peaceful noncompliance. Nope. And if a large percent of the people started doing that, it would be fixed. It would not be overnight. There would be a serious period of turmoil before that got resolved. Look at the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, right? What did he say? He said peaceful. He basically went through peaceful noncompliance. Excuse me. And he had water hoses and dogs and police on his people. You would see that again. If the people were willing to stand and continue to not comply, eventually it would get better. Prohibition of license, I don't think that's entirely true. I know there's some issues with some of the other amendments in the ratification process. What I haven't done, I just haven't had the time, is to research the arguments. I've seen a lot of arguments made, but what I haven't seen is a lot of people giving the evidence to that case. I just, about a week or so ago, was pointed to a book that's supposed to have a lot of that information in it. I just haven't had a chance to research it yet. Do I know the story with Edward Snowden? Well, I'm familiar with Snowden. He had the whistleblower. He leaked information to expose to the public that they were being spied on. Thoughts? From what I've seen, right? I don't have access to all the information. From what I've seen, I do see arguments for and against what Snowden did. I do see the argument said, well, he should have gone through the proper channels. And I see his argument that said, but it was the proper channels that are breaking the law. Where do I go? What I do know is that the information he released exposed vast, large, widespread violation of your Fourth Amendment right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures by any government, for them collecting data without a warrant. I mean, just look at the Patriot Act. In our fear after 9/11, we allowed those in government to assume vast powers and infringe on our rights. And what Snowden did, I think, exposed a large amount of what was exposed a very serious issue. And is what happened to him afterwards right? I don't know. I don't have all the details, but if nothing else, I give him credit for being willing to take the risk and saying, this is too important. I don't want it to get buried. I will put it out to the public because it's the public that is having their rights compromised, infringed upon, and they have a right to know. So again, based on what I know of that case, very few people, I think, know all of what happened in that case. Let's see. If state passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act and will stand by the decision, would manufacturers of fully automatic short rifle and weapons be legal in the state? Well, BSH. The Second Amendment says the right to keep the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It leaves no exceptions, no provisos. If it is an arm, which is defined as a weapon of offense or defense, then, by the way, the Second Amendment says your right to keep it and to carry it, which is what bear means, is protected by the Second Amendment. Now, let's face it, the federal government ignores it. The states ignore it. How many states? I think actually we're now up to what? How many states are we up to that have constitutional carry, meaning you don't need a permit to carry? And do those states have any other regulations about what arms you can keep and bear? But here's the issue, and trust me, I love states that stand up to federal government overreach. Kansas, I think it was back in 2009, passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act. They said any arm manufactured within the borders of the state of Kansas, sold in the state of Kansas, and remain in the state of Kansas is not subject to the National Firearms Act. And that any federal officer that attempts to enforce National Firearms Act on that said item will be arrested and tried under Kansas law. Loved it. Great. Thought it was awesome. Governor Brownback signed it, made a big deal. Life was good. Then Governor Brownback. So these two poor guys, one guy made a suppressor in Kansas. The other guy bought that suppressor in Kansas. It never left the borders of Kansas. BATF showed up, arrested them both, and Kansas folded like a cheap suit. Excuse me. Then Governor Brownback, who had touted, "We'll stand up to the federal government," folded like a cheap suit. That's why I say you need sheriffs, local people that you know and that know you, that will protect your rights, because our governors, our state governments don't have the backbone yet. Okay, educating. Boy, we're running long. That's fine. Education. You know what? Okay, so we've had pretty good stuff. 16 states have constitutional carry. I thought it was like 16 or 17. But my question is, do they have other restrictions on keeping and bearing arms? But before we go there, I want to show you guys something. Do I still have it up here? Where did I put it? There it is. There we are. So here's one of the issues I have. Ask yourself, do you guys feel alone? Do you feel like you're just like one person out in a field shouting at a storm at what's going on and wondering what we're going to do? Well, I set up a new site, and I'm officially going to announce it probably next Monday or Tuesday. But I'm giving you guys a sneak preview, guys and ladies. Right? It's called the Constitution Scholars. This is where we, the people, have the opportunity. Update something here, where we, the people, can get together and find others, where we can get some education, where we can have discussions and debates, where we can find and work together on some of these issues. And I wanted to show you this. Once you sign in, oh, I thought I'd already logged in. I guess I got logged out. Let me log in. I'm going to use my test account. So here's the website again. It's constitutionscholars.com. There's an S, there's plural. Here's what's cool. It's designed around communities. So I see I got a couple of notifications. There are groups. What I've done is I've created groups for each and every state and for the US Constitution. If you go to the website, you can register for an account. It is absolutely free. You do not have to pay a dime to register for the Constitution Scholars. It's not a free trial. Sign up, free, you're set, you're done. You have access to these groups. These groups are cool. Let me go back and I can show you. So like I'm in a Tennessee group because, well, I live in Tennessee. And right now I'm the only person in Tennessee. So anybody here, you register, if you're in the state of Tennessee, please join the group. Let's have some people that can start talking about what's going on here in Tennessee. We can see who's in the group. We can set up discussions about what's going on in Tennessee. We can list events that are going on in Tennessee. This is all about finding others who are interested, even just curious. It's free. It's not like you got to pay $5 to try it out. It's free. You can go in and join these groups, discuss what's going on. There's a couple other interesting things. So in addition to the groups, which again, they've got, whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. The groups you have your own internal blog, you have group messages, you have a friend network, so you can find others that you're interested in, all within this. I'm starting to set up some courses in here. So when you sign up, you'll get access to a limited number of courses. For example, all of my webinars, whenever I record a webinar, I usually try to edit down the video and putting those in here. That's still a work in process. I'm working on some other courses that I'll be delivering both online and in person. I have libraries set up. So if people sometimes ask me, where do I get my information? But here's a great resource, right? These are the links I go to for my research and my reference. So all of this is in here. And then I've also got, I got a couple other libraries. So for example, when you join, you're automatically part of the Everyone group, which kind of makes sense. Everyone includes everyone, and you get access to these books absolutely free. Now, as I said, this is free to join. If you want to come in and join this and be part of this, that's fine. Find friends, find neighbors, get involved, get engaged. That's what this is here for. But there's another part to this process. I'm always encountering people that they want to do more. They ask me, hey, Paul, where do I learn? Where do I take a class? Where do I find this? Where do I find that? One of the things I've set up here is there are 3 levels of paid membership. Again, you do not have to pay to get access. We've got apprentices, which are people you're here to learn. You want more classes, you want more study. You need somebody to mentor you, to kind of help guide you along, not just in the Constitution, but in the process I use when I'm studying the Constitution, the federal Constitution, the state Constitution, when I'm researching laws, legislation, court opinions, the process that I use, that's part of the learning process. Next, we move up to journeymen. Journeymen are those who have, yes, you're still learning, but you're also able to teach others. You're starting to be more independent, more on your own. Again, maybe start teaching others. Masters, these are the top tier. These are the people who have really mastered, again, not only an understanding of the Constitution, but of the techniques of studying and teaching and helping others. Masters, by the way, are the ones that I want to mentor directly as part of this process. Each level opens up some features. So each level opens up additional classes that are free. They're part of your paid membership. They open up access to the library, to more libraries with more of my books in them. that are part of that paid membership. They also gain discounts in the shop. So I've set up a nice little shop here where you want to buy books, you want to buy shirts, you want to buy hats, you want to buy mugs. All of that is in here. What I'm going to ask you to do, I'm actually working on a video that'll give you a kind of a tour of the entire site. But please check it out. Go to the home page. When you log in, you click the login button on top. You can click the register button, absolutely free. All I'm going to ask: name, email, password, that type of information, and join your state group. And let's find out how many people are actually interested. It's kind of hard. I do a live stream and I get a few people here, and I got people that comment on the videos and people that listen to the podcast. I'd like to get a place where we can start finding each other, and we can start engaging each other, and we can start learning from each other and supporting each other. And that's what the Constitution Scholars is set up for. So if I ask you to do one thing, please head over to the site, constitutionscholars.com, register for your free account. If you need help, I got a help desk system here, so you can put in a ticket and ask for assistance. But that's kind of my ask for today, is to, whoops, hit the wrong button, is to consider going on the site and signing up and giving it a try, and then share that with others. The number of times I find people that say, hey, this is great. I know a guy, or I know a lady, or there's a group we're a part of. Let's point them to that and be involved as well. 2021, I'm really focusing on getting back out and engaging with people. 2020, everything was shut down. So this year, I really want to be more engaged with people. And again, I'll do it online. I'll do it in person, whatever works best. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, people like the website. Cool. I took some time to work on that. I've been getting some help with some of the graphics and stuff. I will look at Gab. The only thing that I don't currently have a way to, my post to Gab will be delayed. I have a system that when I post messages on my website, they spread out. They don't do Gab, so I got to figure that part out yet. But we'll see how things go. Also, people already have freedom. Yep. That's tell Lord, you have a point. When we ultimately, I think, we've been taught to believe that government rules us rather than government serves us. And that is going to take time to change. It takes time, even when you know it, it takes time to change the mindset. It'll take even more time to change other people's mindset. But we start by getting together, by knowing each other, by encouraging each other, by helping each other, by standing up together with each other. And I think the scholars will help you start that, regardless of whether you do the scholars or not, regardless of whatever you do. Please be willing to stand up and protect your rights. Be willing to stand up and protect the rights of your neighbors, your friends, your family. And let's, anti-federalists, what's more important? Your time in jail or your rights? Or put it this way. Are the rights of your children and your children's children worth the inconvenience of being jailed unjustly? Because that's ultimately the question. And I understand not everyone will be prepared to do that, but we need to be prepared to support those who are. So if you're not willing to go to jail to fight unjust, unconstitutional laws, I understand. And I would not ask you to do that if you're not prepared, but I would ask you to support those people who do. I don't know. I feel it in my bones that I cannot ask someone to to do that if they're not willing. I think it is wrong to do that if they're not willing to. But I think the people who are willing need our support. They are intentionally separated and thought that made to think they are on their own. There's a reason why solitary confinement is one of the worst punishments in prison. When we are alone, we feel vulnerable. When people stand with us, we feel strong. And if you're willing to stand with those who are willing to stand up and take those slings and arrows and go to jail to protect your rights, then remember, even the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, he went to jail. How many people stood with him while he was in jail? So yeah, that's yes, education is the start. I believe until we have an educated populace, we will still have a populace that can be manipulated. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. And I don't want to get people's hopes up to think it's a quick fix. But I think in the long run, I'll put it this way. I look at the country I'm leaving my daughter, and I'm saying, I want to leave it a better place, even if it's hard for me, even if it's difficult for me. And what am I willing to do to help leave my daughter a better country than the one we have today? So I know I'm running real long. I usually try to keep these to 90 minutes, but we had such great questions. I truly appreciate those questions. I appreciate the feedback. Please, BSH, if you get an account disabled message when you register with the Constitution School, you should receive an email on that account with an activation link. You must click the activation link before your account will go live. If you're having a problem, open a ticket, let me know and I can fix it. But yeah, once you create the account, you got to click the activation link. That keeps me from getting a lot of people with fake email addresses. So if you put in a fake email address, you can't activate the account. That's why that's there. So I forgot to mention that. Thanks for reminding me. The recruitment video going. I got Tunnel Lord. I have been busy trying to get the scholars up and running, but I have started laying out some ideas for those videos we talked about. I want to probably put it this way, probably sometime once I've got the scholars stuff put aside, once I've got that done, maybe we'll reach out and we'll do a Zoom call and start brainstorming some of the ideas you have and I have, and we'll see what we can come up with. But I like the idea of what you've been the ideas that you sent me, and I want to pursue them. It just may take a little bit of time. I got a lot on my plate. I'm a one-man band here, so I'm basically a one-legged man at a butt kicking contest, and I'm busy. So thanks everyone. Listen, have a great night. Things are bad. They could be worse, but they're only going to get better if we look at what's actually wrong and then figure out what we can do today to fix some small part of it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. What's the bite you got to take today? So I hope everybody enjoyed this. We had a great discussion, and I will be on second Tuesday of February. We can have the live stream. Videos will still be hitting. Have a good night, everyone. I'll see you next time right here on the Constitution Study.